Hi there, it's Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, Worldwide TV Network, WomenOnTV.tv, iTube 247 out of Franklin, Tennessee. So today's co-host, Mike Szymanski, Hollywood, Jessica Heim, Tennessee, Nonstop Terri Marie, Redondo Beach, and the director, Johnathon. Pronounce your last name for us, please.
It's Cipiti.
Hey, see, I don't want to get it wrong. Jonathan,
I
let's
appreciate
talk
that.
about this film. I never knew of Father Peyton, but I knew of all the things that went on, which is really interesting, going back to Hollywood history. How did this documentary come about? Because it's really good.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's actually a really interesting story. I'd never heard of Father Peyton either, actually, but I had heard of the saying, the family that prays together stays together. I feel like most people have. And when my producer, Megan Harrington, came to me and told me about this story, it just kind of struck me because she started with that. She said, "You've heard the saying, the family that prays together stays together." I was like, yeah, everybody has. And as she started to tell me a little bit about his story, we went back and forth, and the depth of his story, whose lives he's been involved in, and just what he's done kind of blew me away. And from there, we started making it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. I watched it last night. It was really inspiring, especially at the time that we're in right now. It's like people need to have faith because everything is such a mess. So I don't know. I just like the message the whole movie gave. It was just very positive. The fact that, he had tuberculosis and overcame that just shows the power of prayer, that he was able to, break into Hollywood the way that he did and just said, I want to do this show over the radio, knowing nothing about it. Just showed the human will and what faith can do. So I really highly recommend this movie, especially right now if you need some encouragement in your life.
I agree. I totally with the mood of the era is so depressing now. And what I love about this is that you don't have to be religious to really appreciate this. I mean, if you're spiritual in any way, the power of prayer, whether, you believe in Buddha or a higher entity of any sort, it's just, you don't have to be religious. You don't have to be Catholic to appreciate this movie. And I just think it's wonderful. And it's very inspiring and yeah, good job.
Thank you so much. It's interesting you say that. Yeah, I feel like this time in particular, we're obviously living in a really wild time, but it's been amazing to go back through Father Peyton's story and see the times that he was going through too, and just all the major world events, and realizing that whenever there is tension in the world, we come to these moments of what is important. And so these stories of hope and family and prayer, to me, I mean, I know prayers changed my life entirely. And it's been an amazing reminder for me, this whole process and journey of why is it in these moments of stress and tension, that's when we go to, what would it look like if we treated our entire lives that way? What if we lived out of the abundance of that rather than just in these times of stress? How would the world look different? How would our families look different?
Right. It's just, I think it's belief in the power of positivity. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. You reap what you sow, or whatever you speak, not that whatever you say it's going to happen or it doesn't, but you can believe, and you can kind of will things to go a certain way or another. And ultimately you're still controlling the way that you perceive it, the way that you think about it. So even if something horrible is going on, you can still have a way to think, okay, this is just another stepping stone. We're gonna get through this. It's gonna be okay, one way or the other, because we have to. What choice do we have?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's again a good reminder that you can't control everything that happens to you. We can't control everything that's happening in the world, but we do have control of our response to it. And that, I think, is so powerful. It's very empowering when it seems like there's nothing you can do. But when you realize that there is a lot you can do, even in that act of praying, there's this submission, this kind of release of control of I'm not God, but I have a responsibility and a response to my family, to my neighbors, to my community, to how I respond to what's going on around me. That's where the true power lies.
So true.
So I think it's also one of those things. I practice Buddhism, so I could relate to what he was doing. He used the power of medium, not social media. I want to say that because it fits what he was doing. It's really what Movie Reviews and More is doing. We're using many different outlets to get our words out there, whether it's in the world of fitness, whether it's Jessica performing or singing, or it's Mike and I talking about movies. We want to get the word out there in a different way of how we're doing it. He did it in a different way. He didn't care, and I saw a lot of me in him. Believe it or not, is I don't care when it comes to a director. It's about the work. It's about the telling of the story. It's about the message, which is important to me. And then you'll have those people block you. Well, what's your outlet? Well, how many followers do you have on social media? I'm like, the hell with that. Here's the thing. It's about a good film. It's about creating in a different market, different avenues, different sites. And with the world has changed. So if you're thinking in the old way, kiss my ass, literally. That's what I will say. But the whole thing about that is this is a great movie and more people need to see it because the world in film, even in television, music has changed, hasn't it, John?
Oh, it absolutely has. And I really appreciate you snuck in some very kind words. I appreciate that about the film. And, for me, I really believe, I like the idea, ever since I was a kid, I like the idea of making movies. I think that has a nice ring to it. But when I realized that it was actually a tool, that movies and media in general is one of the greatest drivers in cultural influence, you realize that there's a responsibility there. And, Father Peyton's story in particular changed my life when I heard it. And again, this is at the start of the project is when I heard about what he was doing, because he used the tools at his disposal to affect the world. And it wasn't about him. That was one thing Megan and I talked about, the producer, we talked about the whole time, is this is not a story about Father Peyton. Father Peyton's life was changed. He had tuberculosis. He was on his deathbed. He prayed, and his life was changed. But really, that was just the beginning of a transformation. In my view, that was kind of like when his eyes were opened, that, like what we were talking about, there was more. There was so much more there. And I think in that submission, in that devotion to what is my role in the world around me, how can I spread what I know to be true? And I think, in this conversation so far, what's so interesting is I think we see it here is like, at the end of the day, it boils down to we are all, we're here together and we're all people. And so this message that Father Peyton has, coming from a Catholic priest of the family that prays together, stays together, I think has so much more weight to it than just on the surface. Because I think in the act of prayer, you're doing a few different things. Is you're submitting to the idea that there is a God who is greater than you, who has created you and loves you. But then that act of praying together is something that's even beyond, because you're coming together with someone else. And in prayer, oftentimes you're vulnerable. And how often in culture are we ever vulnerable? So this really simple sounding statement of the family that prays together stays together is actually massively loaded, because if as a society and a culture, we said we're going to take time to just not only be together, but be vulnerable and praise and be afraid and be, happy and joyful, I think that'd change a lot.
It's funny. I think that there's more of that going on now we're being so isolated now. But one of the things, Sally Kirkland is an actress friend, and she does these half-hour chants and prayer sessions every single day from 4 to 4:30. And even when she's filming or ill of health or whatever, or the Dodgers game is on, she does these chants and then pray, and we pray together. And there's people from literally every corner of the world, from England, from the Philippines, from all over. And it's just it's a vulnerable, like you said, but it's also, there's some power to it, and there's light, and, you just feel it. And I just think that there's more people doing that than that. And I wouldn't normally do something like that. I got to tell you, I mean, if it was my regular life and that we weren't confined and there was no pandemic, I wouldn't be doing that. But I am now every day, and I love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Oh, and she froze. Oh, Terri. Okay,
Like
Terri, you
freeze?
you froze for a minute. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I just see, well, not everybody, but I do see quite a few people being more spiritual during this time because it's so challenging. And people have lost a lot and they're having to come with grips of it because they can't control it. I think I've become more spiritual during this time. I mean, I've been fortunate during this time. I haven't really gone through anything horrible, knock on wood, but I watched others around me suffer and I've tried to be there for them. And I don't know, it's so important for us all to come together. Even if we're not blood family, I believe we're all family on this earth. And I think that's kind of the message that he was giving. That's kind of the message I got from the movie.
Absolutely.
From his. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I think that is one of those things of we create so many distinctions in our life of this is my loved one, this is my friend, this is all of this, but really that simple command of love your neighbor has no distinctions, because everybody is your neighbor. And when we kind of separate off into this is the group I feel comfortable in, or this is what I'm doing, I feel like it leads to so much exclusion when at the end of the day, we all come into the world the same way and we will all leave the same way as well. So I think that if we spent more time living a bit more presently, we'd start to look at our neighbor a little different and be able to realize that there's some things that are much more important than what we tend to focus on.
Yeah, and it was inspiring to see the masses he was able to bring together at the same time they could all pray together. That to me is amazing. You know, and then again, what you guys were saying before, that's the power of prayer. Bring all those people together and putting that positive energy out to the universe, no matter what people are needing. Because we're all, at the end of the day, want the same thing. We all want to be loved and accepted. So, very powerful.
Well, and one of the things for me is, you know, I've been practicing Buddhism for 32 years. So I pray a lot harder when things are going good because I'm always checking in with my friends. My friends are my family is my acquaintance. My family never understood that. And I said, I have to do things in a different way. Just let me be who I am, but everybody will blossom underneath what we're doing. And that's why, you know, I came up with the movie, you know, the title More, Movie Reviews and More. This is the more part. It's right now it is about spiritual, whatever you believe in. But when I'm saying my prayers twice a day, I'm including a lot of my friends. I'm including my hosts because I want them to succeed. And Father Peyton was the same way when he went to Hollywood doing it, because this is the toughest business to make it in. And a lot of people don't make it. And, you know, when Terri and I went to Tennessee a couple of years ago with Victoria, it was one of those things that said, don't go to Hollywood unless you're prepared, because the world has changed and you're going to get eaten up. When he went in, he didn't know where he was going. And I loved it. He just went for it and nothing was going to stop him. And that's what I do when I'm creating a lot of the stuff for all of us. Nothing is going to stop us. They have no heart, you know, they have no idea how hard I pray for my friends and the team, because I want everybody to succeed.
There was a line in the movie in the beginning, I can't remember, that he said that he wasn't fighting against something. Remind me of what it was, because it's on the tip of my tongue and now it's driving me crazy because it was really important. He wasn't, what was his cause? What was he fighting?
Was it in his... Oh, go ahead.
He said that he was too busy. He was too busy focusing on what he was for. He was for love. He was for peace. He was for companionship, you know, and support. And because he was filling himself so much with the positive that it drove out the negative. He didn't have time to worry with that, to mess with it, because he had literally changed his focus from negative to positive. That was very huge. Yeah, that spoke to me, because that was kind of a message. Instead of trying to fight what you don't like in this world, reverse it to the positive energy of the things you want to bring into this world. So that hit me, you know what I mean? Because too many of us are like, we're trying to fight what we don't like instead of putting that positive out. So that was a big one.
Well, and I think what's so interesting as well is from the lens of religion, so often people associate rules with it. They associate oh, you are a priest, you must be this. And, you know, as a Christian, for me, I feel like that was always so much that I had associated with it. But when you realize you're a child of God, you're completely loved that the way that you are, it shifts your focus away from how can I fix other people, because you start to realize there's a lot in you that you can be working on. And I think so often we think of this as like an accomplishments based thing, but in reality, I forget, one of you just said this earlier, forgive me for forgetting, but the idea of we all want to be known and to know others. I believe that that is true, and how much more so with the one who created you, that to know that you are fully loved and you're fully accepted. So I think so often we mistake this idea of if I do enough or am enough, I can achieve something. And more than anything, it's no, are you being fully broken when you're broken? Are you coming to the table 100% and diving into that relationship? Because if so, I don't think you're going to have as much time ridiculing others for what they're doing when you realize the today that you have.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's what I was going for. And again, like, yeah, it just made me stop and think a lot. And that's another reason I recommend people to watch this movie. It's like you gotta be okay with the now and not think, oh, okay, I gotta, what you're saying, I have to do this or be this certain way before people are gonna listen to my message. You just have to speak your truth now, because we're always going to be searching or trying to be better. I mean, that's, as humans we do. So you're never going to be that at that place you should be, if that makes any sense.
Jonathan,
Yeah.
Or what?
As a documentarian, I'm curious about your decision about what you chose to do for the reenactments, and how you came about with that, and you know, some documentarians don't like to do that. Some, you know, do it too much. And I wonder how you came to those thought processes.
Yeah, no, actually, it's really interesting because I would fall into both of those categories of mostly the one of don't like to do it. And so as we were approaching this, we were fortunate to have an insane amount of archival footage because Father Peyton founded Family Theater. So we had all of this footage through the years, which was really great. And then obviously we had the current interviews and then some of the families, but a lot of his story was just so, I mean, it was visual when I heard it. Like when he described Ireland, when he described all of these things of a world, you know, back when he grew up that I wasn't familiar with. And so we had the opportunity to go to Ireland, and when we were talking about doing some of these like recreations, a big goal for me was I wanted it to feel a little bit like we're not really recreating anything. It's more of the way you would remember something. So like glimpses of things or colors or feelings of when I think back to when I was in school, when I think back to when I knew someone, I remember only very few details, but the details I remember they stick with me. So that was kind of the goal, was we don't want to be on the nose. I think the details, like the broad scope stuff, to me doesn't matter as much, but his voice, hearing it over like the grainy radio or like the staticky radio and being able to see some of that, I wanted it to just maybe give glimpses more than anything.
Nice.
It did. What stuck with me, one of the things early on was explaining that he was kind of an ornery little guy and he didn't get on very well with early on in school, and the story of him getting mad at whatever teacher it was, and he was like, fine then, I'm out, bye. Like and it also sets a great picture to know that's what he was, that's where he came from. And then you have this man who is speaking to the masses about love and getting on with people and complete strangers, but yet it's this little dude that's like, I don't like my teacher, bye.
Yeah.
And it was just that was a great description for me. I saw it all happen. I wasn't able to watch, so I was just listening to it, and it set this whole picture. It was my own movie, you know, of his life going on in my head that I was creating. And it definitely got the point across.
And that tenacity is funny because like you see who he was as a kid, and that tenacity like that's how he approached the movie stars. Like with Bing Crosby, for example, when he's thinking of people to call, he's like, okay, who's the biggest person we could find? And someone's like, I don't know, Bing Crosby. And he's like, great, give me a phone. And that kind of just like, no, I'm just going to do this. It's really encouraging because, again, he wasn't doing it for him. I think that was the biggest difference, is he knew it was something greater than him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the clips I like in there is when you have a picture shown of Danny Thomas, because I'm sure at this point, years later, Danny gets that image to start St. Jude's Hospital. But you've got that picture, and I was like, there, that's what it is. And I thought it was iconic that you had ended up using that. I'm not sure if you realized that, but you got it there.
No, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, years later, it's Danny Thomas who creates St. Jude's Hospital.
Yeah. When we put it in, it's funny you say that because somebody brought that up after they had watched it. But when we were editing it in, it was just a great picture. And so, and he's with all these people. He's with Lucille Ball. He's with Frank Sinatra. He's with Bing Crosby. He's with all these people. I think that one was just, it's a good picture. And somebody told us that later on.
What's been the reaction that you're showing it, and will the Vatican see this if they haven't already?
I mean, I'm not sure. I would love if that happened. That would be, that would be great. I really don't know. That would be the hope, though.
Jessica, I was going to ask.
But also.
Oh, good, Jonathan.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, finish. Yeah, finish.
I was just going to say, when it comes to the viewing, what for me has been a big goal is I want really anybody to be able to watch this and get to the core of the message. And so I would hope that they see it, but really I just hope that anybody could come to this and watch it and take something away from it.
I see that it was in theaters when there were actual prayer sessions too that were in the theater too. Is that what I understand?
So it's gonna be in theaters. It hasn't been yet, and then so it's gonna be in theaters.
And is it gonna be released in other platforms as well? Or how
That's the goal. We're working out some of those details still, but that would be the goal. I mean, it's so interesting releasing a movie. Having a plan to release a movie and then everything going on, and then trying to pivot and do what is still going to be best, because we want to get it into people's hands, but in the best way and the safest way, and also in being able to have it be. I think this could do equally as well in theaters as just at home, with families being able to watch it too. So we're hoping for kind of a mix of all of those.
I want to put this show on the other outlet that we have. It's Faith and Family. So again, this would really play well in the South, but it plays well no matter where you are. And that's what I really like about it, because you can't use the old format where when Mike and I would be doing a lot of interviews one-on-one, whether he, when he was writing USA Today or whatever the case was, we're just going to put it in this market. No, this film belongs in every place. There's not a market that it doesn't belong in. Even during the pandemic, it's possible that people would go back to the theaters to see this movie, and that would be interesting in a safe way.
I think it would be really interesting because, I think one thing definitely that I've continued to learn, but I think a lot of people are realizing, is in this time when we can't be around people, again, we crave relationship. We crave that kind of coming together. And I think that, I'm hoping that, like you said, in a safe way, this gets people to a way of not just getting out, but also a reminder that when you are home, when you are with the people you can be around, those times are, you're valuing them. And you realize, for me, this has been a massive time of maybe thankfulness that I have the core people in my life that I can go to in times of need. And they may have always been there, but I think it's good to have some of these refining moments in our life, even when they're tough, to take inventory and realize how important those relationships are.
Jessica, in your area where you are in Tennessee, this would play well in Franklin and those Nashville areas, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course. But like you were saying, I think that this is not just a Southern thing or wherever. It's meant to be for everyone. That's what his goal was. It wasn't specified to any type of person or denomination or culture or anything. His mission was to reach the world, and at that time, he did about the best that any of us humans could do, under the circumstances. And I think that applies to now. Now, our the way that we receive stuff now, and the way that people either are very against or very for something, it just goes back to it's not about that. It's about just bettering yourself and having faith in what's good and what's right, and being aware of other people and yourself, and being a better person, and then putting that out there. And I think that applies to anywhere in the country, not just the South. And I feel like should be and can be accepted and observed that way.
I'm interested in hearing from Jonathan what you were praying for to get this documentary done. Did you have to pray to get over the hump in some cases?
That is maybe one of the best questions I've received on this. And yeah, every single step of the process, from when the idea first came up, we were praying constantly of, all right, if this is supposed to happen, we pray that it happen. And then as we got to it, there were many stages where we didn't know what was going to be possible. Were we going to be able to go to Ireland, which was something we had really wanted to do and an important part of the story? Were we going to be able to get some of these interviews? And so definitely all throughout production. One day, actually, we were in Ireland and we were filming with some of Father Peyton's extended family. And we had a sunset shot that's in the film that we needed to get. It had been raining all day, and the place I wanted to go was like a 2-hour drive. And the way it was looking was we were going to drive 2 hours, cut this interview short, and still it was going to be cloudy, ugly, nothing was going to happen. So we were just praying the whole way that we got in the car and we did it. And when we got there, the clouds broke. And nobody could really talk, because we all looked at each other, and it was this moment. It wasn't just a sunset. It was like an appearance. We were all just, awestruck. And it was one of my favorite moments of the whole filming process, because to me, it was not only just this amazing answer to prayer, it was this, it took me outside. I think as a filmmaker, it's so easy to get stuck in, okay, this is a project. We have to get into the logistics of what we're doing. But then to have those moments that pull you outside and remind you why you're doing what you're doing, it was definitely one of those.
Oh, that's a great story.
That is so cool. How long did, from start to finish, from the inception, the travel, and all that, how long has this project taken? Or has the product?
That is a really good question. I believe it was about 2 years in total, give or take a little bit. But yeah, it was about 2 years. We did most of the production close together. I was also one of the editors, me and John Cipiti, who's another editor up here with me. And we did the first round of filming and kind of started editing in tandem with that. And then the only one we kind of had a bit more of a break was before Ireland, because that was most of we knew what we needed at that point. Mm-hmm. And then we were just in post for a while, which is always the case with documentary.
Wow.
Jonathan, we've always been in those situations where usually the documentaries, it took like 7 years, an average of 7 years, because you had to raise the money, you got to get the rights, you got to find the people, and then as you talked about the traveling, and it was always interesting to hear whether it was Barbara Cockrell or Michael Moore or, Ken Burns, all the stuff, because they're great filmmakers. This is a really, really good film, but I like your work in general. What didn't make it in? That's always interesting when it comes to a documentary. What did you leave out that it didn't fit in?
Well, thank you. A ton, so much. That's, I think, like the first cut of the last couple of documentaries I've done have been like 5.5-hour cuts. And the thing is, so much about, I feel like the first cuts were so dense with the character of Father Peyton and examples of his love towards others, but also how he had spurred people on. We had so many of the family stories of how he actually impacted them and how that impacted their community and all of that, that I just had such a hard time letting go of, because those are the things that, you know, for me, a movie's not worth making unless it's going to have some sort of impact, even if that's, you know, creatively or inspiring somebody or emotionally. And in this case, you know, I wanted it to carry the impact that Father Peyton had as well. And so many of those, there's just too many stories to tell of families realizing the power of prayer and individuals realizing the power of prayer. I think, real quick, one of the most important things to remember in this process for me, I interviewed Victor Vasquez. He's in the film, and I asked him, I just started off by saying, "What's your prayer life like?" And he said, "I can't control what happened to me yesterday. I can't change that. And I might die tomorrow. So I wake up every day and I say, God, thank you for today." And I remember just sitting down interviewing him and just being like, that's it. Like that, and that has stuck with me to this day. I actually have it written on my wall over there. But I think that so many stories like that, they may have been left out, but I felt like they boiled down to that idea of, regardless of what's in my life right now, God, thank you for today.
Jonathan, what you know, talk about the platforms where you think it will be released, give social media links, and then what are you working on now?
Yeah, okay, so it is going to be in theaters October 9th in select theaters, and you can find out which theaters at praythefilm.com. And the social media tags, if you search Pray the Film, you'll be able to find us. And I think, so as far as platforms, a lot of that is still up in the air after theaters, but we'll definitely be getting it out on different channels. So if you go to praythefilm.com, on a couple different projects right now, all in the documentary space. Just got back from Alaska a few days ago doing a documentary about somebody in the Pacific Northwest who has had a big impact in that area, and we were in a couple of the rural villages up there, which was absolutely crazy. We're actually working on quite a few different docs in that space, mostly dealing with, you know, how the world's changing and how we as people can have an impact on our communities, and how we can make a difference. That's a very broad 35,000 foot view way to sum up 6 different projects, but that's most of what it is.
So now you're like Ken Burns, where he's always working on 5 different projects at the same time.
Yeah, the thing for me that I love about that is, my favorite part of the documentary is talking to people, realizing that there's so much more that makes us similar. Like we were saying at the beginning of the conversation, there's so much more that unites us than divides us. And when you're sitting behind a camera, you just get to spend 2 hours learning from someone. And that's what I love. And I like being able to pop onto some of these other projects, because it keeps you constantly thinking about the specific project you're working on, but then it informs what you're doing to make sure that, you know, I don't think in anything we should get too narrow-minded, and it's always a good reminder of that.
All right, we got about 2 minutes. Terri, what are you thankful for today?
What am I thankful? Oh, well, I'm thankful for my life, and I'm thankful that I have, you know, great friends and family, and I feel blessed.
Jessica?
I'm thankful for this opportunity, because if I wasn't part of Movie Reviews and More, I wouldn't know about this documentary that's coming up. So I'm thankful that I had this chance to talk to all of you. And also, side note, if you ever need somebody just to tag along and enjoy the ride and travel and take photos, just give me a call. I'll go with you. I love Alaska. I think it's one of the most beautiful places, and peaceful and just refreshing places I've ever been. So I'm a little jealous that you just got back from there.
I've always wanted to go to Alaska. That sounds great.
Ah,
It's gorgeous.
that's on my bucket list too.
And Michael?
I'm thankful for my health, and I'm really thankful that there's going to be an election in less than 30 days.
And Jonathan?
I'm very thankful to be here today. I'm thankful for the countless answered prayers that got this film made. And I'm thankful that God hears and answers our prayer and that he wants to talk to us.
And I'm thankful that we're all, doing our best to get through each day. It's not easy. I constantly say prayers and affirmations throughout the days. I'm amazed that we're doing what we're doing, and I couldn't be happier. And again, I can't wait for the stories to be told, countless stories that can be told, because there's so many during this lockdown. Michael counting how many days he's been sequestered, Terri going through her stuff, and Jessica just
here,
not being on the cruise ships, thankfully, Jessica, but in general. But for that, I'm honored, Jonathan, to have you on, because it is such a great film. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure it gets out. I'm even putting it on our platform.
He froze.
It's very, very important.
And we're thankful for Zoom.
Thankful
Exactly. So with that, Jonathan, give the social media links one more time.
Pausing in a moment of thankfulness. Oh, there you are. You're back.
We lost you for a second.
Jonathan, give the social
We lost
media
all
link
of
real
that,
quick.
Brian.
What was that?
Give your social media link real quick.
My social media is Cipiti, JCIPITI, and praythefilm.com for the website and updates on this, and then Pray the Film for social media.
Terri?
Nonstop Terri Marie or Terri Marie Nonstop on all platforms, and then TerriMarieOfficial.com.
Jessica?
Jessica Heim, same as my first and last name, Heim on Facebook. Jessica Heim 7 on Instagram, and Notes, the number 4 Life on YouTube.
And Mike?
Mike Szymanski. I've got my books on Amazon, on Dachshunds right now, and also under Mickey Ski on Amazon.com.
Okay, so for that, this is Brian Sebastian. This is Movie Reviews and More. I can't wait to put this show on Faith and Family, which will be really good because it goes into Father Peyton. So we have to say this because I think Father Peyton would probably say something like this. If you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours, because the world needs it. We will see you next week.